This is the Public Safety Committee for Monday, January 28th. Councilman Smith, Vice Chair of the committee, presiding today. I'm joined by Councilmember Zine. Anyone wishing to speak to the committee on an item on today's agenda, please fill out the white form and present it to the clerk so that we know that you wish to speak on the item. With that, items number 1, 2, and 3, the Public Safety Anti-Gang Initiative, the Police Department Sobriety Checkpoint, and the Foundation for Found Animals donation will all be on consent, if Mr. Zion agrees.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then number 6 will go forward as note and file. Is that approved by Mr. Zion?
We should ask a question. I got a couple questions.
Okay, we'll keep number 6 on the agenda then. Sorry, almost got off. She was heading to the door.
She was too anxious to leave.
Heading to the door. And with that, we'll begin today's agenda with item number 5 being the one that has the most interest. So, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you.
John White, City Clerk. Item 5, Department of Animal Services reports and communication from Councilmember Richard Alarcon and proposal for a draft ordinance relative to mandating the spaying and neutering of domestic cats and dogs by the age of 4 months.
Can we get quiet in the room, please? Thank you.
With certain exceptions, creating a spay neuter advisory committee and related matters.
Thank you. Mr. Alarcon, welcome. And could we have the Animal Services and City Attorney come forward also, please? No 3-minute warning. The clock's yours.
Good morning.
Take all the time you want.
Which
I don't think I have to tell the Public Safety Committee about the challenge we have with regard to animal safety and the desire by many, and I think the vast majority of people in the city of Los Angeles, including, I think, our city council and mayor, to create a no-kill situation in Los Angeles. And when I first joined the city council just about half a year ago,
That was the second time.
Time flies. The second
that was the
time,
second.
yeah.
You always use that rookie routine.
Well, no, I only wanted to say that I think it was about a week after I got here that there was this huge debate about a spay and neuter ordinance, and Assemblymember Levine was championing a statewide ordinance, a statewide measure. And while I supported Mr. Levine's measure, for the most part, I do believe it is better to create local ordinances that are tailored to the needs of a given city. I think the department, and let me mention Mr. Bickart from the mayor's office and my staff have worked with the community to put together, I think, what is a very reasonable ordinance to spay and neuter dogs and cats. The fact of the matter is, I could go through the statistics about the numbers of people, numbers of animals that are killed in our shelters. We spend over $2 million just on euthanization in our clinics every year. And we can and the cost of spaying and neutering is 1/3 the cost of euthanization. So, for many reasons, we would like to see this move forward and begin the process of creating environments that are healthy for animals and safe for human beings. So, if I could just touch on what the key elements of this ordinance are. First of all, no person in the city of Los Angeles shall own a dog or cat over 4 months that has not been spayed or neutered unless, and these are the critical as we were negotiating with the community and trying to come up with a fair posture on this. The exemptions include the owner has obtained a breeding permit from the Department of Animal Services. 2, the dog or cat breed has been approved by a registry or association recognized by the Department of Animal Services. 3, the dog or cat is actively used in to show or compete and has competed in at least one legitimate show or sporting competition hosted by a recognized registry association within the last 2 years, or is being trained to show or compete but is too young to have yet competed. And 4, the dog has earned, or if under 3 years old, is being actively trained and in the process of earning an agility, carting, herding, protection, rally, hunting, working, or other title from a registry or association approved by the department. 5, the dog is being actively used in a manner that meets the definition of guide, signal, or service dog, or has been documentably trained in that manner, or is documented as being enrolled in a guide, signal, or service dog breeding program administered by a licensed person or entity. 6, the dog is appropriately trained and actively used by law enforcement and or military agencies, or is documentably in the process of being trained for such purposes. 7, the owner of the dog or cat provides written documentation to the Department of Animal Services from a licensed veterinarian certifying that the animal is best served by delaying surgery beyond a specified date, or that due to age, poor health, or illness, it is unsafe to spay, neuter the animal. Additional rules for unaltered animals as defined under exemptions. All unaltered dogs and cats must be microchipped. An unaltered dog shall, in addition to meeting one of the exemptions in this section, have a valid dog license consistent with the provisions of the LA Municipal Code, and the license for an unaltered dog shall not be transferable and shall not be issued to a person under the age of 18. We also were concerned about educating the public to this because this is a massive transition in the way the city of Los Angeles has operated with regard to these animals, and so we feel that it is important for us to first educate. And so in the first violation, the person who is found to own, possess, harbor, or have custody or control of a cat or dog in violation will be given information regarding free, subsidized spay and neuter services. Of course, we were also trying to address the cost. We feel that many people find it to be a tremendous burden to bear the cost of spaying and neutering services, but society benefits as a whole when their animal is spayed or neutered. After the second violation, however, we do feel that there should be some responsibility, and we think that we put in place a reasonable second violation. So after failing to comply for 60 days, the violator shall be given a second violation, the penalty of $100 or 8 hours of community service, and they must still spay or neuter the animal. The third violation obviously gets a little more serious. If the penalty or community service and sterilization is not performed within 60 days of the second violation or any extension, the violator shall be given a third violation. The penalty of $500 or 40 hours of community service is initiated, and they still have to spay and neuter the animal. After the fourth violation, then it could become a misdemeanor. And so and we put a date of July 1st. I'll let the department explain why that date is critical. But after July 1st, 2009, after 60 days from the date of the third violation, the continuing violation then would become a misdemeanor and may be prosecuted as such. An interesting provision here because we wouldn't want to make a mistake, and we want to make sure that we have a citizens committee monitoring this situation and helping us move forward aggressively on this program. We propose to establish an advisory committee, and we believe that it would be appropriate for each council member to have a representative on that advisory committee. The purpose of the advisory committee would be to provide information and advice to the Animal Services Commission and the Department of Animal Services, and I might add this, and city council members, and neighborhood council members, of course, right? Right, Greg? Regarding policy and funding issues affecting low-income residents. The committee will also advise the Commission and Department on strategic outreach efforts to educate the public about spay, neuter programs, and the city's and other available programs. So as you can see, staff, as I said, the mayor's office, my staff, and the numerous competing interests in this issue have put together a well-thought-out program. I think it's safe to say that nothing's perfect on this scale. But if passed, this would be the largest spay and neuter ordinance in the country, and it would save thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of lives that are taken unnecessarily because we haven't grappled with this issue. So at the end of the day, we can argue till the day is long, or we can act and save lives. I believe this is a well thought out, sensitive, compassionate, and financially responsible way to manage the spay and neuter responsibilities that we as a society should bear. And on the final note, let me just mention that we do anticipate over time, it'll take a while, but over time we could save as much as millions of dollars, and because it is cheaper to spay and neuter. The people would not be threatened by dogs in the street. People would feel more responsible, and they would be educated about that responsibility in terms of how to care for their animals. Breeders and trainers would still have an exemption to ensure that their animals can perform at the highest levels that they are able to train them. And so I really think that that this is a great coming together, and I would urge your support. The department is here, the city attorney and the mayor's office, and I'd like to ask the department to give a little more detail about what are the ramifications of these issues, or this ordinance.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would like to begin, first of all, by thanking Councilmember Alarcon for his...
For the audio record, Ed, introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Ed Boakes, General Manager of Animal Services. I would like to thank Councilmember Alarcon for what I think many would consider his courageous leadership in proposing this very necessary piece of legislation to help Los Angeles continue its leadership role in the nation as being the friendliest pet community in the United States. This past April, the City Council voted unanimously to support Assembly Bill 1634, the California Healthy Pet Bill, a bill designed to abate the incalculable suffering and unwanted loss and homeless dogs and cats in the state of California. The ordinance before you today essentially does the same thing for the City of Los Angeles, with adjustments made to address our specific needs. Several years ago, the City of Los Angeles became a national leader by committing itself to ending euthanasia as a methodology for controlling pet overpopulation. This commitment was demonstrated by an allocation of $160 million to build 7 state-of-the-art animal care centers to manage the crushing number of lost and homeless animals rescued by LA Animal Services every year, over 50,000 animals. This commitment was further demonstrated over the past 6 years by the City Council, who, in concert with the mayor, provided the support the department needed to staff those new facilities, increase our spay-neuter programs, and move this city to the forefront of the nation's drive to become truly animal-friendly. This unflinching commitment to the health, safety, and welfare of our community's pets has taught us that addressing the pet overpopulation problem from the back end is expensive. It is like trying to mop up a flooded basement without first fixing the broken pipe. We can build bigger and prettier buckets to capture the overflow, but until we turn off the faucet that is pouring thousands of unwanted dogs and cats into our city shelters, we will never get ahead of the homeless animal explosion. Many of us face the harsh realities of pet overpopulation every day, as we take in, care for, and ultimately kill too many of the animals in our charge. If insanity is defined as doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, then this ordinance gives us a tool to end the insanity and do something significantly different. This law will help to end the cycle of frustration we all face and feel every day, and allow us to eventually reallocate precious resources toward increasing adoption, educating the public on humane issues, and fight animal cruelty. It is a tool that can propel us toward a day when we can truly say we are not killing any animal because we need more room in our shelters for the seemingly endless flow of newcomers. On behalf of the over 400 employees of Animal Services and hundreds of volunteers and partners we have throughout Los Angeles who feel the brunt of pet overpopulation every day, I ask for your aye vote today. Now, I am available to answer any questions and provide additional information throughout the meeting, but I would like to defer now to Deb LaSalle, the city attorney, who has helped us so well in crafting this ordinance, and explain it.
Good morning, council members. My name is Dov LaSalle. I'm from the city attorney's office. This morning, you were also given a slightly updated version of what was in your package earlier. There are just a couple of changes. They aren't extremely significant, but just sort of for the record, if you would, I'll quickly go over what those changes are. On subdivision 2, if a dog or cat over 4 months hasn't been spayed or neutered, valid written documentation must be provided to show proof that the animal is exempt. So we simply added something that would have been required anyways, which is proof that they fall under one of the exemptions. At the bottom of that page under subdivision E, it talks about a vet certifying that the animal's health, and we added the word health, would be best served by spaying after a specified date. One of the things I should note is that this gives great deference to veterinarians in making decisions over whether a dog should be spayed or neutered. In subdivision 7 on page 2, it was added that the notice to comply is both for a violation of subsection B or subdivision 3. There was a concern that in addition to spaying or neutering, the animal, if it was kept intact, must also be microchipped, that this was an important consideration. Finally, the last major item was that there was consideration given to the fact that because this will have such a large effect on dog and cat owners, that the subsection should not become operative until October the 1st, rather than immediately upon adoption by the City Council, assuming that it is adopted.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you very much for that presentation. We have a number of speakers, but first, Mr. Zine, do you have any questions?
A few, Mr. Chair. The groups that are supporting this, do you have a list of groups that are supporting this measure?
Do we?
Has there been an invitation to groups to support?
They're probably here.
Yes, we have.
Letters of support?
There had been when we first took this up. I know there were
we do,
groups.
and I apologize for not bringing them. That's par for the course up in Sacramento, but we don't normally do that here. I could go through randomly.
So you have a number of letters of support
Ed?
from different animal rights
All of these are letters of support, City of South Pasadena included. I'm looking for some organizations here.
Certainly the department, and I would say that because this ordinance is substantially similar to AB 1634, which has hundreds, if not thousands, of organizations supporting it, that we would probably find the same kind of support for this ordinance.
There were also some opposed.
Primarily breeder organizations, AKC, and then membership or affiliated groups of breeder organizations who, by and large, didn't want to comply with the ordinance because it would require them to get tax ID numbers and that sort of thing.
This ordinance covers the breeders.
This ordinance makes provisions for breeders, absolutely. Not just breeders, but anybody in the city of Los Angeles who would want to breed or, for any reason, not spay or neuter their animal can do so simply by purchasing a dog license and a breeding permit. So it's a little bit more generous than, or less onerous than AB 1634.
And on 1634 for the city attorney, if Assemblyman Levine brings that back and that goes through and that's implemented, what will that do to this ordinance?
Well, part of the issue with 1634 is that it's been going through and has gone through so many changes that it's really impossible for me to say. But this would be a local ordinance. It should not be affected by whatever's done in AB 1634 unless there's something that gets put in there down the road. This is substantially the same. It does provide some additional possibilities for Los Angeles so that, for instance, one of the concerns with AB 1634 was from many constituents that if they owned a dog that was not a purebred, under AB 1634, as it was initially written, they would still need to spay or neuter their dog or cat. We've provided that if you get a breeder's permit, then you can go ahead and breed your mutt. In other words, this is not as draconian. Depending on the language of ultimately, assuming 1634 passes, we'll have to look at it then to see if it impacts or not.
But generally, a state law would supersede a local ordinance.
If it were specific on particular points or if it took over the entire field of regulation. Oftentimes we have local ordinances that coexist with state law on the same topic.
Well, but it ain't necessarily so. The state could fashion a measure that that allows local jurisdictions to create their own ordinance that are stronger. For example, our building and safety code is much stronger than the state's building and safety code.
Or they could prevent that on the other side of
Yes.
the coin.
Or they
Either
could
way.
override it, yes.
But I mean, at least we would have something locally in the city of Los Angeles, because I supported Mr. Levine's bill. I support this general idea to help save the animals, but just some of the particulars that
Maybe
come to
Mr.
mind.
Boss could tell us the difference between Mr. Levine's bill and what this ordinance does.
Well, we passed out a document that highlights certainly the similarities. Some of the differences, and Mr. LaSalle can assist me with this. Some of the differences, of course, are the penalty structure. Yes. We do require also that animals in the city of Los Angeles that are used for breeding or take advantage of the breeder's permit, they have to be microchipped. That is not a provision of AB 1634. One of the biggest reasons animals are dying in our shelters is because we can't find the owner. This microchipping provision will help ensure that we can reunite pets to their owners. Other differences?
Well, I should also mention, Mr. Bighart reminded me that at least in earlier versions of AB 1634, there was specific language allowing local ordinances to supersede. Again, whether that remains in there, 1634 has gone through many iterations over the last 8 or 9 months.
That is true. Having been part of the AB 1634 effort, that has been a strategy that we have incorporated throughout, is whenever local jurisdictions are able to draft ordinances equal to or more stringent than, they would certainly have that ability to do so.
I also don't think Mr. Levine's measure included an advisory board.
That is true. That is an innovation, I think, that is very unique to anything that's being done in the United States, and especially in a city like Los Angeles, having an advisory board made up of a representative from each council member's district, I think will be invaluable in making sure that over time, if this ordinance needs to be tweaked in any way, shape, or form, we'll be aware of it very early on and be able to make those adjustments.
You mentioned microchip. I understand there's different devices and different reading devices. Have we come up with a universal microchip and a device that you could read all of them?
Yes.
And not slip through where some can be detected and some can't?
There are two primary microchip companies in the United States, Charing Plow and Avid, and there's a third newcomer coming on the scene from Canada. But we have had universal scanners for, I would say, about a decade now. So we've had that technology for some time. When we scan our animals in our shelters in Los Angeles, we can read Charing Plow as well as Avid.
Okay.
So we have the universal scanning technology already.
And a couple other issues. The enforcement. The first time, give notice, have it resolved, and then it gets up to ultimately a misdemeanor. Once the person receives a notice to comply, And how do we determine if they comply or not? How are we going to determine if there's going to be a second, third, or fourth offense? What resources do we have to make sure there's compliance? Do we have a mechanism of enforcement to enforce what we're saying?
Interesting. One thing about this ordinance, as a practical matter, somebody could be a very responsible owner of a dog, never spay and neuter it, or a cat, and never run afoul of this ordinance. As long as they are responsible, there are no complaints. The system is complaint-driven.
Let's say someone receives a notice, someone is told,
Right.
you must comply. What mechanisms do we have to make sure there's compliance?
What I was leading to is that it's largely complaint-driven. So, first of all, I don't think animal regulation is going to be oversaturated with any more complaint calls than they get now. It's just that when they get the complaint call, they'll be much more effective in honing into the problem folks, because they'll have this tool to be able to deal with the issue. So I'm sure they will follow up.
Well,
No, my question is,
I understand the
follow up.
question. And when we issue a citation or a warning, individuals are going to have to either come down to our center to purchase the license or submit it in by mail. And when they do either one of those, we can track it electronically and see that they have complied. And we can just as well see that if they haven't come down within that time period and haven't complied, we can send an officer out and issue the second warning.
Okay, and then after the second and the third, which I believe in, you cite them, get them in, and get it done. Just the time it's going to take. There are some people obviously going to resist. They're not going to comply. And there's some that will comply once the message goes out. My concern is the resources to make sure we get compliance. If we have an ordinance, we want to get compliance, and we want to have enforcement on that compliance. I know the police department doesn't have the resources to do it. Do you have the resources within your current operation?
I think that's another important difference between AB 1634 and this ordinance, is that it will require some resources for implementation. And we've done a very preliminary cost study, and we think it's going to be in the neighborhood of $380,000 to $400,000 to implement this ordinance. But I want to hasten to say that there will be an offset in that the fines and penalties and fees that this ordinance levies, we think will significantly offset that expenditure.
And what about animal hospitals and pet stores? Will there be some public information disseminated through those locations to inform the public that we have this? I mean, you do one news blitz, you do one news conference, and it's gone. Is there going to be some requirement for pet stores, hospitals, et cetera, to keep the public informed?
Because this type of ordinance is usually piques so much interest in the community, I'm sure that all the local media will immediately let folks know about this. But over the long term, yes, we're wanting to develop a public education campaign. We're in the process of establishing a 501c3 Friends of Animal Services, whose one of their purposes is to help raise marketing funds, because that's not something we have within our budget. But to help us get the word out as best we can. Also, one of the reasons that we're looking at the dates that we are with respect to implementation is the City of Los Angeles will be opening several spay-neuter clinics throughout the city, making implementation of this ordinance much easier on most Angelenos, that they could always come to our shelters.
And are spay and neuter clinics free, or is there a charge?
We have, it'll be the voucher system that we currently have, so, if you qualify for one of the various programs that we already have in place, it'll either be free or reduced cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. For the record, we've been joined by Councilman Reyes, which now brings us to a quorum. And Mr. Reyes, we can consider 1, 2, and 3 as consent. With your approval, it's the action of the committee. And do you have any questions on number 5?
First, I apologize for not being in the first part of the presentation, but we talk about compliance and how are we dealing with the elderly population who use this one form of companionship, and yet they're limited income. We know the housing crisis and all the challenges and tribulations that we're going through in the economy. The folks that get hit the most and the hardest tend to be the seniors. In relative to enforcement, I mean, how are we addressing that particular dynamic when we know we have limited incomes for seniors who rely on pets as companionship? I mean, where's the flexibility in there, or is there?
Well, Councilmember, that's a great question, and this is an area that both you and I are very concerned about. And again, this is just another area that Los Angeles is just leading the nation. We have a Seniors for Seniors program with respect to licensing. Senior citizens can get dog licenses for free and have been able to do that for some time. And our voucher system, I believe, also we have a program for seniors that allows them to receive spay neuter at no cost. So that's already a program that we have.
But the vulnerabilities of...
Mr. Reyes, if I could add on to that.
Yeah.
This is sensitive to dogs that assist the disabled, so they could be exempted if the dog is certified as such. It also recognizes low income and through the voucher system. But as I was saying just as you were walking in, the system is largely a complaint-driven system. If somebody is managing their animal responsibly, they probably will not run afoul whatsoever, and
They won't come into the radar.
yeah, because
Yeah.
they'll keep their animal at home, and it'll be their companion, but it won't bother anybody else as long as somebody else doesn't complain. In all reality, I think there's going to be a number of people and animals who will survive without being spayed or neutered in the city of Los Angeles because they are managed responsibly.
Gotcha. Okay. In terms of the voucher, though, that one question I did have, how vulnerable is the voucher system
I'm sorry.
in terms of the shortcomings of our city budget? How much of the voucher program is dependent on the general fund? Is it general fund based?
We're currently managing a $1.2 million spay neuter fund.
That is established by the general fund.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we have a number of speakers, so if I could have those 4 seats vacated. Mr. Alarcon, if you wish to...
Could I mention one other thing?
Sure.
One of the speakers who put in a card conducted a poll. This is a Zogby poll on the state level. I guess it was relative to the bill more than my ordinance, but the vast majority of people in California, and I believe in Los Angeles, want us to get this situation under control for a variety of reasons. But she will in detail explain the results of her poll.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Alarcon, if you'd like to sit with us, you're welcome to. First 4 speakers will be Phyllis Doherty, Sheila Landau, Hayes Lynn, and Ellen Lowenthal. We'll use the 2-minute clock, Mr. White.
Sir.
Phyllis?
Good morning. Phyllis Doherty with the Animal Issues Movement. I'm also here for Sue Taylor from Actors and Others for Animals, who's out of town today. And of course, we support this, and we're grateful for all the effort that's put into this. As you know, Sue and I wrote, at Mr. Boak's request, a spay-neuter ordinance that's largely this has been based on. We appreciate that they've used the better parts of that for this. I want to remind you, I don't need to go into everything that's been said because we know what the problem is, and this looks like such a great way to start on it. I'm glad that this is not being termed a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance because that is what gets us into trouble. It's not mandatory. It is going to be enforceable, but if there are people that do not want to do it, there are provisions that they can have that will avoid that argument and also that problem with the media, which we really don't need this to get into the media as a mandatory spay-neuter ordinance because we may not get a support of it. SB 861 that we worked on very hard about 3 years ago provides the foundation for this regardless of AB 1634 because it does allow local jurisdictions to establish their own spay-neuter ordinances to control population. That was the one on which we did the county ordinance. The county ordinance is working fine. It has most of these provisions in it where you have not run into any legal challenges, and it is accomplishing the goal. And this looks like it's a wonderful way to start for the City of Los Angeles to also accomplish this.
Great, thank you. Next.
Oh, anybody? Okay. Okay, I'll go. Good morning, Council. My name is Hayes Lynn, and I'm representing Boxer Rescue Los Angeles. We house over 120 purebreds. I came today to ask for your support of the spay and neuter ordinance. I love the Boxer breed, but they are a powerful dog. Every year, we are now seeing gorgeous, stunning Boxers in need of rescue, but some now have aggression issues. They all seem to be coming to us from the same areas of the county. So we know someone out there is breeding an aggressive line. They are most likely inbreeding brothers and sisters for flashy looks to quickly sell the puppies. These breeders sell them before they are properly socialized by the mother dog. The problem is when the puppies grow, the aggression appears, and they become everyone's problem to deal with. This ordinance will help weed out these irresponsible breeders and will help the good breeders keep the breed we love, the sweet, friendly Boxers they were meant to be. Just recently, we had a gentleman come to Boxer Rescue, and we took an entire litter of puppies, where the gentleman claims that he did not know that a brother and a sister dog could impregnate its sibling at such a young age. Boxer Rescue now has 8 of his dog plus the adults. Rescue just can't keep up at this pace any longer, and we need your help to support this ordinance, which is the only humane solution to this growing problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shayla Landau. I'm a resident of the City of Los Angeles. I'm an employee of the City of Los Angeles, and I'm a volunteer for LA Animal Services. I urge the City Council to pass the spay neuter ordinance. I wanted to speak briefly to what Councilman Reyes was saying. They are not going to go out and take the animals of little old people down the street. What they're going to do, this is going to give teeth to the LAPD Animal Cruelty Unit, to LA Animal Services to go out and take enforcement action against backyard breeders who are causing a flood of animals to be brought into our city shelters that are euthanized every year. To paraphrase a saying, if our city shelters had glass walls, everybody would be for the spay-neuter ordinance. I am there on a weekly basis, and I see the animals brought in. It's absolutely heartbreaking. These are healthy animals. These are animals that are just there because there are not enough homes for them. This, as somebody has already mentioned, this bill provides exemptions for police dogs, law enforcement, show dogs, working dogs, for family pets that are too old or ill to breed. This is not going to have law enforcement banging on your senior citizen's door. It's just going to assist your senior citizen from having unwanted litters that they cannot control, they do not know what to do with. I worked in South Los Angeles. I still work there for the past 11, 12 years. I see the stray animals that are on every street corner, that are in every backyard, the lack of education and knowledge about how to manage the situation. Some of them are backyard breeders because they just, this is what they do. This ordinance is just going to provide money for the City of Los Angeles to be able to control and give control numbers to the people who want to breed. Over $250 million taxpayer dollars is spent every year to collect, control, and kill the state's unwanted overpopulation of cats and dogs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ellen Laventhal. I'm president of Animal Alliance, an organization based in Beverly Hills, West Hollywood area, but we have membership throughout Los Angeles. It is said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'm just going to give an example. I don't have a picture, but it'll be an example that I hope speaks to this issue.
You have 1,000 words.
That's 1,000 words in 2 minutes.
Right.
I was thinking.
About a year and a half ago, at the beginning of kitten season, a gentleman called me from the downtown Los Angeles area, and his words were, you know, I have a litter of kittens and I have to get rid of them. Will you take them? And I said, yes, I'll take them. I also distribute vouchers for the City of Los Angeles, and I'll give you a voucher and tell you where you can bring the mother cat for low-cost spay. And he said, yeah, get me the voucher, but come get the kittens. So I met him. He gave me the kittens. At the end of kitten season, about 6 months later, I got another call from him. maybe 6, 7 months later, said, I got more kittens. Can you come get them? If you don't, I'm going to dump them at the shelter. I didn't even think he knew where the shelter was. I was afraid he just dumped them in the street. But even if they made it into the shelter system, it was unlikely during kitten season all of them would have found homes. The following year, I got another call from him. And he said, I have a litter. Are you going to come get them? And I said, I'm going to come get them, but I'm also going to come take the mother cat. Please let me take the mother cat. I'll give you $50 if you'll let me take the mother cat. So that's 15, 16 kittens that were dumped into the shelter. Well, they would have been dumped into the shelter system. But the rescue organizations are overwhelmed. We can't take them all. We can't take all the unwanted animals.
Thank you very much. Next three presenters will be Jane Valise Mitchell, Judy Mancuso, Christy Metropole, and Julia Pennington.
Hi, I'm Jane Velez Mitchell. I'm an investigative journalist, and I comment often on animal cruelty cases on national cable TV shows. Recently, I was talking about the Michael Vick case. I've won a couple of Genesis Awards from the Humane Society of the United States for reporting on animal cruelty, so I've followed this throughout my 3-decade career, and I'm just here to urge you so strongly to please move this forward. This is so important. There's a crisis. This pet overpopulation problem isn't just hurting animals, it's hurting people. And the notion that this is going to hurt poor people is so wrong, because actually what hurts poor people is to allow pit bulls to reproduce at wantonly and roam through their neighborhood, threatening them and making the neighborhood almost unsafe to visit. I was in Abbott Kinney the other night, and I was with a friend. We walked our dog east a couple of blocks in front of a project, and there was a pit bull puppy roaming the streets, and the kids were like, we found this pit bull puppy, no identification, unspayed, and already, even at its young age, looking like it could bite a child's head off. And I took the puppy with my friend to the West LA shelter. The good news is that puppy got adopted. But had that not happened, that dog, in a number of years, could literally become millions of dogs. And the rudimentary math is that a dog can get pregnant at 6 months, can have a litter of 6 to 8 to 15 dogs. Those dogs, in turn, can get pregnant in 6 months, have litters of 6 to 18, 15 dogs. Sometimes they can have 2 litters a year. So if you think about it, just from a mathematical perspective, it's just rudimentary math that it's insanity to let these dogs roam the streets of Los Angeles as if it were a third world country, just reproducing wantonly. It's dangerous to postal workers, cable workers. I've covered stories where postal workers have been mauled. And the fact is that most of them are pit bulls. So please pass this.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Judy Mancuso, and I'm the sponsor, co-sponsor of AB 1634, California Healthy Pets Act, and I have been working with the City of LA. I have a cold right now, sorry. On this ordinance for a couple of years, actually. And I have some new statistics that I want to share with you. One is directly related to public safety. As of the 2006 annual report of the local rabies control activities, this is from the Department of Health, in California we had 38,269 animal bites. Of those were 29,384 dog bites. Okay, that's in California. The CDC places us the highest in the nation. In the Los Angeles local health jurisdiction alone, we reported 5,478 dog bites. Now, the CDC not only did studies on this, but so did the AVMA, and since I have limited time, I will just tell you that the bottom line is it's unaltered animals, and it's female and male animals, and they're unaltered. And so I could give you the reports in more detail on those if you'd be interested. Next, as you know, we got a lot of opposition to our state bill. Some of the legislators at the Capitol thought that the support was 50-50 for this bill. So I commissioned Zogby to do a statewide poll for us to tell us where is the support in the state? And we're looking more in the 70% for spay and neuter. Would you get your pet spayed or neutered if there was a state law requiring you to do so? 66% of the people just say yes. The next thing, and I know I'm running out of time, would you support a spay and neuter bill? This is without any information on why it was 66%. And if I could give two more, would you be much more likely, somewhat more likely, somewhat less likely, or much less likely to vote for a California legislator if they supported a spay or neuter law? 62% reported they would be more likely to vote for you if you voted for this. So I thought you should know that. And one last one, do you believe individuals who sell cats or dogs for profit should obtain a business license, pay sales tax, and report their income? 81% said yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Christy Metropole, and I'm the Executive Director of Stray Cat Alliance. I'm in support of this ordinance. I think it's very important that the City of Los Angeles gives a message to the world that we are not business as usual and that we want to stop killing animals. And I think it's very important for everyone to understand that stray and feral cats do not just pop out of the sky. They are people's abandoned, unspayed and neutered cats. And so we have feral colonies all over the city, all over the country, all over the world, and they are domestic cats that have been abandoned, or they are the offspring. So they're not a separate population. Feral cats and domestic cats are the same population. So if we start spaying and neutering domestic cats, we will have less feral cats on the street. I think that's very important for people to understand.
Great. Thank you very much. And the final two presenters will be Terry Austin.
Oh, wait. You have one more.
Oh.
Julia.
Oh, I'm sorry, Julia.
I don't like to speak in public.
No, that's good. I got Julia.
Dang it.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Thank you. We were working together on that. Hi, my name's Julia Pennington, and I'm the founder and president of A Dog's Life Rescue. I'm also a resident of Los Angeles. And I'd like to reinforce what Ellen was saying about the illustration of what we deal with day to day as a rescuer. In my neighborhood alone, I have 3 people within 2-3 blocks, 3 people who are continuously breeding over and over. There's a woman just around the corner who, Rebecca, who now is on probably her 16th litter. The officers have been out there, but their hands are tied because she's had 2 bites reported. They come, she gets licensed, but they can't, she hides the litters. At this point, she pays the licensing fee, and she keeps saying, I'm not breeding, and then she goes off and sells them. And our hands are tied, and it ends up, she calls me when they're sick, when they have parvo, and at this point, we're enabling these people. That's what it feels like. Joe down the street, I have taken 67 cats. He lives a block from me, over 6 years, and he won't stop. And then right now we have, I think, a list of about 14 people who've said to us, just in the last few months, that if this is an ordinance, they will let us fix their animals. It's not about money for them on the cost of spay or neuter we've offered. We'll pay for it. But right now they're like, I don't want to. It's his manhood. They won't, but they say if it's an ordinance, it will happen. And this can make that difference. And I urge you to support this because right now I feel like we're enabling these people. And the people who are doing it responsibly, it's fine. They don't, they have an exemption. We need to stop the others who are adding to this crisis. Thank you.
You can have for 16 seconds. If you want.
Go, Judy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now Terry Austin and Bobby Dorafisher.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Terry Austin. I'm president of the Amanda Foundation, and the Amanda Foundation is currently the vendor for the City of Los Angeles's mobile spay-neuter program. And I want to report to you that in our last year we did 7,200 surgeries on our mobile clinic, which makes us the most successful program of its kind in California. And over 50% of those were dogs, and of our dogs, 22% of them were over 50-pound dogs. And that's different than any other program in the country. A lot of the programs that have higher surgery numbers are exclusively for cats, And if you call the ASPCA in New York, it says right on their outgoing message, no dogs over 50 pounds. And why that's important is that our aggressive breed dogs, our pit bulls and our rots and our shepherd mixes and chow mixes are the larger breed dogs. So if they're excluded from the programs, you're not even hitting those problems. So in answer to your question about the seniors and the lower income people, when the spay-neuter program was instituted, one of the things that we promised the council was that no constituent of Los Angeles would lose their pet because they couldn't afford to spay or neuter it. And in fact, in the last number of years since our program started, there isn't a single case of someone who had to come up and say, I lost my dog because I couldn't afford to spay neuter it. When Mr. Boakes mentioned the voucher program, that's separate from the spay neuter program. This program comes up for renewal in October of this year, and the RFP has not gone out yet, so I hope that it doesn't get overlooked and that we continue the spay neuter program, because we are the only program in Watts. There's no veterinarian with an address in Watts. We're it. In Boyle Heights, in South Central, we're regularly at Vermont and Slauson, and we're the only people who are. So we're very much in support of this ordinance because it addresses a lot of the hard-hitting problems, and you do want to get on the breeders. A lot of people think that breeders are all club people, and it's the Pacific Palisades Cocker Spaniel Club, but I tell you, we've got a lot of pit bull breeding clubs, and so you want to be able to legislate those people as well. And I'll just say, I hope that 1634, the people who are backing that, take a very good look at this ordinance. It's better. 1634 has major loopholes, and I hope if you're asked to support it, that you'll use this as a template and make the suggestions that the problems with that bill be tightened up. I haven't seen the new language, but the last language is Swiss cheese. Thank you.
Just one question. You mentioned certain geographic areas.
Yes.
7,000 sounds like a very high number.
It is.
Is that the primary areas you go, or you go throughout the city?
Well, we're also in the valley. We go to Canoga Park. We go to Pacoima, a big area. A lot of animals coming off the street in Pacoima. We go to Sylmar. We go to Sunland. We go to Lakeview Terrace. We try to hit the areas. What we did is we worked, when we first instituted the program, we worked with the department and asked where are your highest numbers of animals coming off the streets, and those are the areas that we've targeted. So, and we have seen a reduction in the number of puppies coming into the shelters in the South Central Shelter in East Valley, not with cats because they're not licensed, and it's harder to control the cats because there isn't a way to enforce it as much as there is with the dogs. And I'd love to be able to do more with the cats, but with the dogs, when we first went to Watts and we went to some of the areas we go to, we'd get maybe 10 or 12 people show up, and now several years later, this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we were in San Pedro. On Sunday, we did 47 animals. On Saturday, we were in South Central, we did 47 animals, which is our capacity for a day. So the program is working really well.
So the correlation of poverty, education, and this issue is very obvious.
It is extremely obvious. I do a lot of school visits, and when you go and you tell, I personally believe that the majority of people, given the information, will make the right choice, And when people find out, when they are given the education, that their unaltered dog is less likely to bite a child, 3 times less likely, according to the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, less likely to bite a child, less likely to roam and either attack another dog, a person, or a pet. There's so many benefits. You're right. Education is the answer.
But the last question is there any type of leveraging with the school district and messages to families and kids and how they connect to the families? Is there anything like that?
Well, I'm so glad you asked that. There is a statewide mandate that says that children in elementary school are supposed to receive 1 hour of humane education a year, but it's unfunded. So like many unfunded mandates, and the problem with 1634, again, if you don't have funding for enforcement or whatever you're doing, it's not going to happen. I go to a lot of schools, and I talk to principals, and I would say the majority of them are not interested, even though I come and I say, I come from a long line of teachers,
right.
And I know if you bring a lesson plan into a school, a lot of schools are very happy because that's 40 minutes that's already planned. We bring materials, we do it for free, and it's very difficult to get the teacher or the principals interested in it because they don't see it as a high priority.
Okay.
So it would be wonderful in council districts. I would love to meet in your individual offices and talk. What we do is we do special events. We did in Watts, we did a very successful, twice we did Pimp Your Pit. There's a very popular cable show called Pimp Your Ride, and it's about fixing up your car. So we made the joke about Pimp Your Pit, fix up your dog. And we got young men young men to bring their dogs in to be spayed and neutered, to be microchipped. We had trainers there. We made a festival of it. We had some rap music. We had a dance contest. We do these events, and we're the only group I know in the country that is approaching it this way. But you're right, going into the communities and creating family events, that's the way into the community. And then people tell their friends, and if you treat the people well and you treat them with respect and you give them the information, then they tell their friends. And nothing makes me happier than we get the call saying my aunt had her dog done with you or my neighbor had their pet. But the enforcement, getting into the neighborhoods, the canvassers, when we had the canvassers really hitting the streets, every single day I'd see people with that yellow hand tag, and they'd say to me, they came to my house. And I said, yeah, and they're going to come back if it's not done,
Great.
you know? So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Bobby,
Hi, my name is Bobby Dorafshar. I'm a founder of New Leash on Life Animal Rescue and the owner and operator of Canines Only, a training center in Tarzana. I live in Woodland Hills, California. I've been volunteer for City of Los Angeles since 1994. Started mobile pet adoption program, and I've been involved to placing over 30,000 animals to good homes. Or hoping to good homes. This situation, there are so many faults which I've been involved with it myself professionally and also passionately. We are dealing with the tax money payers, which my focus is not on that. I'll pay my taxes and I do what I have to do. As an organization, we do rescue animals, and we spend almost $1 million a year to get these animals out of the shelters and find them a great home. Some of these animals, they get trained for social therapy, and we go to schools to educating the people on the lower income area. The program is started from getting the phone call from the school districts, which there are so many loose dogs in the neighborhood, and all we had to do, educate the kids to close the gate and start fixing animals and talking to their parents. As a dog trainer, for past 20 years. Usually the problem with dogs are very, very simple as a public safety issue. We're dealing with the genetics, we're dealing with hormones, we're dealing with environment. I'm talking faster because I got a lot to cover. If we would be able to control the hormones, which is the dominancy, the 5,500 dog bites in just Los Angeles is the dog bites has been reported. I can guarantee you more than 80% more, they are not actually reported. At the same time, 4 years ago, Highway Patrol had a percentage of 86% of the roaming dogs being in the car accident being unaltered animals. Unaltered animals, they do roam and get out to go to mate. If we would be able to take care of the hormone as spay and neutering, and we will absolutely control the genetic issue. As spending $1 million a year, I would love my organization and 200 other organizations put our focus to put this money towards spay and neutering and public safety issues to educate the public. Unfortunately, as a rescuer, our hands are tied. As a passionate father, I do not want to see my child see an accident of a car hit the dogs in the middle of a street or a cat. As being a resident of this city, I would like this environment to be nicer and cleaner. So I am absolutely supportive of this program, and if there is any question or any fact about behavioral issue, I'm here to answer you guys.
Great. Thank you very much. That closes the public hearing. We appreciate all your being here today. With that, any members of the committee have any further questions? Or
I make a motion to support.
Moved by Mr. Zine, seconded by Mr. Reyes. Goes forward to council with unanimous support of this committee with recommendation to approve. I believe it's on Friday as a placeholder, is that correct? That's correct. Okay. For those of you who wish to attend, the meeting will be in Van Nuys on Friday because it's the first Friday of the month. You may come to City Council meeting here at 10 a.m. if you wish instead, and testify if you wish via internet. So we do have that capacity if you want to come here. You don't want to go to Van Nuys, but if not, it'll be at the Marvin Browdy Constituent Service Center in Van Nuys. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move to item number 4.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank Councilmember Alarcon for his leadership in bringing this forward, and appreciate all the support.
Item 4. Motion Zion Smith directing the Department of Animal Services to report relative to all rain-related damages to its facilities, including a plan to correct any design flaws that may render the city's animal shelters vulnerable to flooding.
Animal Services? Somebody? Anybody?
Good morning.
Morning.
Council members. Linda Gordon, Department of Animal Services. I'm the liaison to the Bureau of Engineering for the Animal Facilities Bond Program. The Animal Facilities Bond Program, the delivery of 2 renovated and expanded animal care centers, as well as 2 additional animal care centers, and the replacement of 3 animal care centers is managed by the Bureau of Engineering. And I have with me today Kieran Vore, Program Manager for the Animal Facilities Bond Program.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. My name is Kieran Vore, and I work for Bureau of Engineering, and I'm the Program Manager for Animal Facilities Bond Program. This is to address your concern about the rain damage at the animal facilities. As far as Department of Animal Services could tell us, the concern is about the intrusion of rainwater into the cubby area. The design of these shelters was based on design of Pasadena Shelter, animal shelter. I have earlier distributed some information about that shelter, and it's been regarded as RITs of animal shelters, and it's been in operation for a number of years. So our master facilities studies and the basis of the design was based on the shelter in Pasadena. We hired the same architect. And just to show you the information about it, I have the weather information about the Pasadena and downtown LA. As you can see, the weather in downtown LA is much more milder than Pasadena. Say the number of days that where Pasadena has over 90 degrees temperature is 56 days, and in the Civic Center it's 19.5. And also the number of days with the rainfall is much lower than what we have in Pasadena. Just to show you what we have at Pasadena, this is the Pasadena shelter, and this is the North Central. By the way, this shelter has 3 design awards from American Institute of Architects, California Construction, and also Southern California Development Forum. In Pasadena, you don't have any protection, and also the cubby area doesn't have a door. There is just an opening, and there's a panel there. At our shelter, we had the doors, both sides of the cubby, and the cubbies have radiant heating. However, the current concern is that there is rainwater that goes through the area where the doors are attached to the concrete cubby. And last time, when there were complaints about that there was rainwater in there, since Department of Animal Services is extremely sensitive to any concerns that come up, they covered these cubbies with plastic. And right now we are providing a permanent solution to that, where there will be a flashing to avoid getting that water in there, and also the caulking around the door, so that these doors will be totally watertight. If you compare that to the Pasadena picture, you don't have a door at all. However, since they get more complaints and the level of their sensitivity to those complaints and concerns, we've been just modifying these shelters time and again. The canopies were not there in the original design, they were added later on, and now we are modifying, making the cubby doors watertight. And that's how it's, the concern is being addressed. Any questions, Councilman?
I have a few questions.
Sure.
the incompetence of your department. How you would permit this to be done. 77th Police Station is a disaster. Another engineering flaw by the City of Los Angeles. Now we find again a bond measure by the voters of the City of Los Angeles to build a facility, and the facility is not caring for the animals. This was brought to my attention by a citizen of this city, and I was enraged when I heard about it. I sent my chief of staff out there to inspect it with one of my deputies and confirmed everything that I was told by a citizen. I find it amazing that we look at a Pasadena facility and we look at the rainflow in Pasadena, the rainflow in Los Angeles, and then we want to build a shelter. We spent millions upon millions of taxpayers' dollars to build these facilities, and I find that your department is not doing the public benefit that it's supposed to do. And I reflect on the problems at 77th, where an individual escapes from a holding tank because it was flawed construction, and I look at this as flawed construction, and I really find it irritating that now we have to do a retrofit. Now we have to fix something. We put plastic sheeting there to protect the animals in a state-of-the-art animal shelter that the taxpayers spent millions of dollars for. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all that you can't build an animal shelter to protect the animals. We don't have to put up plastic sheeting to protect them when it rains. We have a flood control basin. The flood control basin is flowing right now, but we don't have rain all the time. But when it does rain, we have a flood control system. That shelter should be able to take care of the animals when it's raining, when it's hot, when it's not hot. The drains flow into the kennel. That's one of the problems you didn't address. So whoever built this and whoever oversaw this, whoever the overseer, the construction management, whoever it was, wasn't looking out for the animals or the taxpayers. Now, whatever we're going to have to spend to fix it is additional taxpayers' money. But it was mentioned there's 2 new shelters, 2 redone, 3 replacement, and I question how many of these shelters are having similar problems that are going to be brought to my attention by a citizen of the City of Los Angeles, a taxpayer. I just find this incredible that a department can't get an act together when we're building a facility at taxpayers' expense. It happens over and over and over. And I, for one, am going to bring it to the public arena, and that's why it's here. Because to tolerate this is not my style. And for the taxpayers to put up the money to have it built and to have this type of situation take place, these are brand new facilities. These aren't old facilities. So you use a Pasadena architecture, you use the Pasadena plan. Well, if it didn't work, and why are the drains draining into the kennels? I don't know if you visited, but maybe I should have my chief of staff come and testify who went out there and visited and brought back a confirmation, because I don't believe everything everyone tells me, but when it's documented and the photos verify, it makes absolutely no sense. It just shows incompetence in a department that can't do for the public benefit and the public good. I'd like to call Mr. Ruff up to testify, Mr. Chair.
Certainly. John, I'm Cliff Ruff, Chief of Staff for Councilman Zine. The councilman sent me out to the North Central facility at 1201 Lacey Street. And we were sent out there because of alleged water damage and animals being wet. And I took Jessica Tarman with me, who's our media relations person. All of the outdoor facilities had plastic on them to prevent rain from going into the shelters. Only one animal was soaking wet. There was one animal that we found in the entire shelter that was literally soaked. But what we found at the, I'm going to call it the south end of the shelter, was concrete drainage that drained into the kennel as opposed into the sewer system. It went the opposite way. So it's something that just can't be readily fixed. The concrete will have to be taken out and reset so that it drains to the drain and not into the kennel. The people were helpful. Staff was helpful. It was a closed facility, a surprise visit. But the issue of water getting into all of the kennels was solved by putting plastic sheeting over the kennels. The design is such that it's built for open air
with shade from the sun, but when the wind blows the rain in, there was no protection for the animals from the rain.
Did you inspect any other facilities?
I did inspect the facility at the new one at Van Nuys and Van Owen, and that's the only two. I found no deficiencies there, and I look for overcrowding of the kennels or aggressive dogs in the kennels, and there was none at that facility.
The construction, if it rains, will Van Nuys have the same problem?
When I inspected that facility, it was prior to the rain, so I wasn't looking for rain damage.
So we can assume if it's the same plan, maybe all of the shelters are having this situation where they have to use plastic sheeting to protect the animals.
Yes, the design seems to be an open-air type of facility with merely shade provided for the animals. But when there's wind blowing like it is in these recent rainstorms we've had this year, the rain doesn't fall straight down, it blows into the kennels.
How many other kennels have this similar design?
All the program kennels have the same design.
All the
currently,
program kennels?
yes.
So we can assume
Yeah.
that they're all with rain at this moment?
That's
Plastic
right.
sheeting.
Except, no, at the West Valley, we have indoor-outdoor kennels, and where the animals can go inside the building. However, the rest of the kennels were based on the Pasadena Shelter design. And I stated earlier, Pasadena, the cubby areas have no doors at all. We added the doors, and right now the concern is the rainwater going through the attachment of the door to the concrete area, and that is being covered by plastic. And we are adding flashing over that area, which compared to if you see that Pasadena Shelter in operation, there had not been any concerns about rainwater in cubby area. However, there is, this concern about rainwater through even the door attachment area, and that's being addressed right now.
So who's going to pay for this?
The bond program,
The bond program.
that's right.
So the bond program built the center, built the shelters, and now we're going to use more money from the bond to fix it. Why don't we have the person who built it fix it at their expense? The contractor, the architect. Why do we burden the taxpayers more and more and more?
Sir, the contractor had the design as approved by the department and the city.
Well,
and
obviously the department didn't do it properly. I am so frustrated with this, extremely frustrated, of the incompetence that I see happening over and over when buildings are built at taxpayers' expense. It is absolutely outrageous. It's a disgrace. I'm done.
In terms of your steps to improve the condition, I'd like to see a report back on what steps are going to be taken. What will be the impact of those steps? The shelter here is in my district, so I'm concerned what the constituents are seeing from throughout the city, let alone in my district. We were very proud of this facility when it was built. It's award-winning, and to hear the frustration and anger from my colleague does make me very concerned as to what are we going to do about it. And so can you please put in writing what are the deficiencies? There's an assertion that the flow of the drains or the gutters, you said. Can you repeat that?
In the one section of the Lacey Street shelter, the drains drained into the kennels as opposed into the sewer system.
So can you isolate that particular assertion and look at the physical element of that, and what are we going to do to change that, if anything? The issue of, did you say flashings? You're going to put new flashings along the corners?
We are adding, to the top of the cubby door, we are adding the flashing to keep the rainwater out in case, there is rain coming down at an incline. And also, we are adding the caulking around on the side of the door, so that the door completely is rain tough.
Whatever steps you're going to take, I'd like to just get a summary of what you're going to do to correct it.
It's being done.
Okay, whatever you get done. I'd like to know what the before and after is going to be like. Now, the notion of having an indoor function in the West Valley and not in others, is there a reason for that?
Because at the West Valley, we did this weather study. The West Valley weather is more extreme than Pasadena, while, say, in Harbor area or in downtown area, we have milder weather.
So it was the conditions of the weather.
That's right. And since the animal department as well as the animal community is preferring the Pasadena design over the traditional design, indoor-outdoor design we have, that's why this design was followed for the program.
So I'm taking very seriously what Councilman Zine is saying. I'd like to list the problems, the issues, have them more formally put before this committee, and the solutions, and the cost associated with it. Thank you.
That's the recommendation, Mr. Zine? Okay, the recommendation is that we have a report back on the status of all the shelters as it relates to water problems, and we want to hear about all of them, and then report back. How much time do you need to do that?
Oh, thank you.
How much time do you need to do
How much time do I need that? We could report in 2 weeks.
30 days then, because it's up to the chair to schedule. It's 30 days. You'll report back in 30 days then. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 6.
Item 6, communication from the Board of Police Commissioners relative to the performance of the Police Department's Animal Cruelty Task Force.
I'm Detective Brummagem with the task force.
I think Mr. Zine had some questions.
Thank you. It shows on the briefing the fiscal impact. There's no fiscal impact for the operation, for the Animal Task Force, Animal Cruelty Task Force?
Wow, that's a good question.
It shows here none. I mean, it's costing somebody something, I would assume.
I would assume, but since we're all on the LAPD side of the task force, it's 2 detectives, 1 lieutenant, and 5 police officers, so...
Just to clarify, it's no additional general fund impact. So it's...
Say that again?
There's no additional general fund or other impact. Basically, all of the salaries are already part of the budget.
Okay, okay. And the investigations from 04, 05, 05, 06, the LAPD investigations went from 77 to 157. Citizen calls went from 0 to 387. Obviously, the message is getting out to the public.
It is.
Do you find that you have sufficient staffing to handle the increased call load, considering you had none, and now you have 387, and who knows what you're going to get next year?
Well, I did speak with Lieutenant Lemetico at length if we were to have an ideal deployment. We're good with a lieutenant, and I'm the D3. We have 1 detective. I'd like to boot that up at least to another detective. The 5 police officers that we have that work with the 5 animal control officers seem to work. The 5-team concept is working. And we have also, I believe, a management analyst, and I think we'd be asking for a clerk typist as well.
See, according to this, it shows that establish the Animal Cruelty Task Force, expand the city's investigation enforcement, animal abuse crimes, comprised of 2 LAPD detectives, 6 animal control officers. It only shows 2 detectives and 6 control officers.
As of July of 2007, we brought in 5 P2s.
Okay.
Permanent or on loan?
Permanent.
So you got 5 P2s, 2 detectives?
Yes, a D1 and a D3, and just because I'm a selfish D3, I wouldn't mind having another D1, to be honest with you.
We've got an extra detective sitting right there. You can have him.
We will be happy to loan him out on a permanent basis.
Feel the love.
Yes, we do. I think we can arrange for that. So what you have now, so your allocation obviously was increased to give you 5 P2s who are out there working the...
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I just couldn't understand how 2 detectives working with 6 animal control officers would be able to handle the caseload.
We weren't handling it.
Okay.
It was very difficult.
So the TO was increased by
Yes.
5?
Yes.
And is there any additional requests in to increase personnel? Or is that going to be it for now?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. So are you a working detective, or
I'm a working detective.
you're not like Harrietto who sits around and watches things happen.
I like Harrietto. I don't
I
know
like
who he
him
is,
too.
but I like him anyway.
He's got a great job as a D3. Harry, when's the last time you made an arrest?
Leave him alone. Poor guy.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure you folks have the staffing and the resources that you need to get the job done.
So far, so good.
Okay. So I hate to hold you over, but I wanted to...
Councilman Rosanna, he's going to arrest you, huh? Be careful.
Well, he won't arrest me. He'll be out of a job quick.
Just to keep up the
all right.
numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Before you leave, I'm sorry.
Detective.
Ma'am? Detective?
Wait, you got more.
I know we must have a lot of work out there, but 2 years that had since it's been created, correct? Your unit?
A little over 2 years. It was in July of 2005.
Now, what area are you mostly involved with? Is it citywide? Is it there's concentrations? Is it parallel the issues we were hearing before regarding the whole spay neuter issue and everything else?
It's citywide. We have 5 teams that go out there throughout the city. Our heaviest load is in the valley, and probably because, as you know, it's mostly residential. So, and we do have horse properties out there and things like that. We've handled, in this year, or in 2007, we had a 58% increase in crimes than we had the year before. So those 5 teams are really working very hard.
So is that because you're becoming more familiar with the territory and all the protocols are coming into play and the unit is organizing itself to be effective? Or is it just because the conditions are so bad, it's getting worse and worse?
We're getting the word out there that we exist. We have a PowerPoint presentation that we've implemented that we've shown to all of the divisions, so the officers out there actually know that we exist and that we do enforce 597 of the Penal Code, which traditionally, prior to the task force, was being handled somewhat by our advice units for the blood sport, for the dogfighting and the cockfighting, but in terms of animal hoarding, animal cruelty, animal neglect, animal sacrifice, those were being handled by the Department of Animal Services. Those crimes were traditionally being viewed by the city attorney, and they were doing a great job. There's no problem in regards to that, but they were just overwhelmed and unable to handle the amount of crime that's out there. With the task force, I can just say that we handled 27 arrests in 2006, most of which were misdemeanors. In 2007, we handled 28, but most of those were felonies, because we're taking these cases now that were traditionally seen by the city attorney and taking them to the district attorney. And some of these cases are so heinous, and these people are now getting 16, 18, 2 years, 3 years in state prison for crimes against animals.
Are you identified in the 311 system
Yes.
so that people can get to you through that particular?
If they call 311, they will go ahead and be referred to the task force number, which is the 213-847-1417 number.
Are you in any way in a position to leverage the information you have to the school districts and to the high schools and the middle schools so that families and kids know how wrong this is when these conditions exist? Is there any, I know it's only 2 years in the game here, but do you see that being of help to you?
We were discussing it a couple of years ago. It's always been not in the back of our mind. It's something that we eventually want to get into. It's just that, as Councilman Zine was asking about our deployment, in terms of handling the crime, we have enough people right now to be dealing with that issue. But handling, going in and doing PowerPoint presentations to schools, we would need additional support in that area.
More of the volunteer nature, you believe, or more supportive within the system, new personnel? And more.
It would be my desire to have more support within the system.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, and that will be noted and filed.
Well, don't foul, but what about Harry? Can we loan him there?
Requires a motion.
Okay. We'll hold on that motion.
Seeing as how the entire audience is city employees, I presume no one wants to speak to the committee on an item not on today's agenda. Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned.